Welcome to Token Topics. Exciting developments for Ripple recently as Ripple announced showcase real estate asset tokenization in Hong Kong. Mika gets the green light. Also, Ripple launches a CBDC platform for the development of CBDCs and stablecoins, and a Digital Pound Foundation takes notice. Also, a Democrat voices concerns over CBDCs as the war continues. Remember, I'm not your financial advisor. Please invest at your own risk. I'm also not paid for or sponsored by Ripple. All right, everyone, I have a special DCENT wallet announcement. If you have been debating whether or not to get that hardware wallet to keep your assets safe, now's the time to do it. DCENT is holding a special deal. If you purchase a DCENT wallet between now and May 25th, you'll receive 500 free HAVAH tokens. Incredible. To receive your free tokens, you must purchase a DCENT wallet and submit a HAVAH address form during the event period. This is the form. I'm going to put the link to the form in the description below. DCENT wallet update. You're now going to be able to receive 3 deals in one with a promo code. Not only do you receive a discount normally if you purchase through the affiliate link, but you're also going to receive your free 500 HAVAH tokens as long as you fill out your form, but you're also going to receive an additional 20% discount. Now I'm going to show you how easy it is to participate. Now there's a couple ways you can go about it. You can either click on the affiliate link in the description of any of my videos, or you can go to my main channel page and click this DCENT affiliate discount. You click on that, it's going to automatically bring you to the DCENT wallet store, and as you can see there, you're automatically going to receive an incredible discount, marked down from $159 normal price. Token Topics discount is $129, but it does not stop there. Watch the price melt. So I'm going to add this to my cart. Then simply go to your cart. As you can see, the wallet's in the cart. Then go to checkout. Then simply type in private keys are private and hit apply. As you can see, it marked it down, melted the price down to $103.20. Incredible deal. This is very exciting news that broke today. Now, this is excellent for Ripple and the XRP ledger. Now, some people might state they're not talking about XRP. The fact is that every transaction conducted, it doesn't matter if it's Bitcoin, it doesn't matter if it's a stable coin, if it's conducted on the XRP ledger, it burns and decreases the supply of XRP. Not to mention that XRP is a native asset to the XRP ledger, and Ripple promotes their native asset. Mary Hall, who is a blockchain marketing specialist for central bank digital currencies at Ripple, posted breaking news: Ripple to showcase real estate asset tokenization use case as part of the Hong Kong Monetary Authority's inaugural EHKD pilot program. For most people, their home becomes one of the main assets in their total wealth portfolio, with the possibility of increasing in value over time. However, unlocking this increase in equity has considerable friction. The process can be costly, lengthy, and cumbersome. By leveraging the power of blockchain technologies such as the XRP ledger and Ripple's central bank digital currency platform, Hong Kong citizens can experience the release of equity faster and more efficiently. Commercial banks can also expect to benefit from higher velocity of loan throughput and more flexible payments. Mary states that it was a pleasure for Ripple to participate in the announcement ceremony today in Hong Kong. Now, I know this does not affect XRP, but this is still great news for Ripple and the entire ecosystem. Think of it this way. This puts XRP's name out there. All these different financial institutions that are working with Ripple, all these different banks, they're going to be fully educated on the XRP ledger, and they're going to know the digital asset XRP. And that opens up the possibility for other use cases for the coin. New full-service platform from Ripple allows users to seamlessly mint, manage, transact, and redeem CBDCs and stablecoins. They continue that as a trusted partner to several central banks. We believe this platform will help solve problems for many central banks and governments who are devising plans and developing a technology strategy for CBDC implementations. Same said James Wallace, VP of Central Bank Engagements and CBDCs. The innovative capabilities of the platform will help enable instant settlement of both domestic and cross-border payments, reduce risk, and improve the user experience of quickly sending and receiving digital currency on either side of a transaction. So this article from the Digital Pound Foundation states that with more than 90% of countries exploring, developing, and implementing CBDCs as a way to increase financial inclusion and lower the cost and risk of domestic and cross-border payments, today Ripple is announcing Ripple CBDC Platform, a frictionless end-to-end solution for central banks, governments, and financial institutions to issue their own central bank digital currency, leveraging the power of the same blockchain technology used on the XRP ledger. The enhanced platform will now allow its users to holistically manage and customize the entire life cycle of fiat-based central bank digital currency transaction and distribution. I thought this was interesting, and it allows us to see both sides of FedNow. Will the U.S. government freeze bank accounts through payments network FedNow? Agency responds to criticism and concern. Now, before I dive in, it's not just conservatives that are worried about this, but it's also liberals. So Fed officials are addressing concerns that FedNow, the new instant payments infrastructure developed by the Federal Reserve, will allow the government to surveil and freeze Americans' bank accounts. In a new fact-checking report from the Associated Press, officials from the Federal Reserve say that the new service does not give the agency additional surveillance and enforcement authorities. Associated Press also conferred with Aaron Klein, senior fellow at the Washington, D.C. think tank Brookings Institution, who said that the concerns about the bank accounts being seized through FedNow were nonsense campaign with no basis in reality. Klein reportedly says that the FedNow is a revamp of the Fed's outdated automated clearinghouse. They are upgrading their current system that runs on 1950s technology to one that's modern. It's like changing from Blockbuster to Netflix. But Democratic presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been issuing warnings on CBDCs and their potential threat to the economic freedom of U.S. citizens. So, Kennedy said in a recent interview, the ability to save and spend without political interference is a prerequisite for the exercise of meaningful dissent, and I will defend it accordingly. This is not a right or a left-wing issue. It is about protecting democracy from powerful, established interests. The digitization of currency has given the government unprecedented powers to surveil and control economic life. That is why he opposes CBDCs. So that's a Democrat. So now we're getting it from both sides. Now, if somebody were to ask my opinion, I believe it's inevitable. As long as we have privacy, this technology is inevitable. And plus, not to mention, there's going to be a lot of different nations all over the world that's going to be creating CBDCs no matter what. Please put your thoughts and opinions and comments down below. I'd like to make a statement before I dive into this article, and it's something that I've discussed on the channel for well over a year, almost 2 years now, about the possibility of this technology, such as, not just Ripple's technology, but blockchain in general, to eliminate banks. What if it's like a Trojan horse? And I'm talking 10, 15 plus years down the road. Now, hear me out. Once these financial institutions, these businesses, once they find out that they don't even need a bank, that they can transact directly on the XRP ledger, for example, what's the point of a bank other than just increasing cost and problems? Unless they believe it would still be formal to use a banking service, but what if this is to destroy all the small banks and keep nothing but the central banks? I said it once and I'll say it again. Central banks run the show. So this article is from disruptionbanking.com. The EU's DLT pilot regime has gone live. What does it mean for banks? Again, with the collapse of all these smaller banks happening, it seems as if the central banks are going to maintain the power. Amidst growing scrutiny of the banking sector, Elisa De Caprio, chief economist at R3, discusses how the EU's DLT pilot regime offers an opportunity for banks to innovate and future-proof their finance function against an evolving regulatory landscape. The collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and UBS takeover at Credit Suisse And more recently, JP Morgan's purchase of First Republic has shown a light on many of the vulnerabilities in the banking sector. Principal amongst these is the importance of capital and liquidity requirements, with recent turbulence across the banking sector pushing balance and sheet management to the top of the agenda for finance functions across the board. Many banks are now exploring how to harness modern technology to manage intraday risk more effectively. Now, before I go any further, this is very bullish for the XDC network and also XRP, but we're going to have to wait and see what happens after the lawsuit. But we already know we're on the winning side. But going back to the XDC network, it is the bridge between the private and public networks for R3. Continues here that innovating through collaboration. This is a long article, so I'm just going over some highlighted areas here. So the pilot allows market participants to connect their private placement and internal assets to a regulated secondary market. Buy and sell side participants have identified opportunities with workflow optimism, strategic positioning, and cost-benefit analysis. Banks can now tap into the pilot regime for the launch of the Eurosystem Collateral Management System, or ECMS, whose go-live was recently scheduled by the Governing Council of the European Central Bank from November 20th of this year till April 8th next year. Just want to stop right there. We had a sandbox. We had an executive order that was signed by Donald Trump, and I'm not getting into politics. I'm just stating a fact here. Is 13772 is the executive order signed by the Trump administration that was protecting companies like Ripple. It actually had Ripple's name in the executive order. They were being protected. States here that the EU is not the only jurisdiction to begin experimenting with DLT at scale in financial services. The UK government, for example, has established its FMI sandbox, which is expected to be up and running in 2023 this year, and will enable firms to experiment with DLT in these areas. And more developments for the digital asset space. Speaking on regulations and bringing this technology forward, EU finance ministers give final go-ahead to MiCA. That is very important. The European Union's landmark crypto regulation has passed its final legislative hurdle with the unanimous approval of European finance ministers. Members of the EU Economic and Financial Affairs Council, ECOFIN, adopted the Markets in Crypto Assets MiCA with no objections in a meeting on Tuesday. The world is noticing the power of DLT technology. This is posted by John Ho, who is head of legal financial markets at Standard Chartered Bank. Impact of distributive ledger technology in global capital markets. So basically they have this report. It was put out by the Global Financial Markets Association along with others, and the power of DLT technology. So the report, the impact of distributive ledger technology in global capital markets, evaluates the opportunities and risk of DLT and DLT-based securities and assets. If you see my latest XDC video, I actually talked about the tokenization of literally everything, securities. And if somebody, they're hearing the word security a lot with this Ripple lawsuit, just get that out of your mind. What they're talking about is stocks, bonds, ETFs. Imagine those types of securities enabled to have the value on a token or on a ledger. That is revolutionary technology. So basically, they're going over the benefits and also the risks that come with the legalities over the regulatory framework and risk management to frameworks. The good part is right here is that the report finds that DLT, and I want to add DLT technologies such as Ripple's XRP ledger, the XCC network, and others. The report finds that DLT could unlock transformative cost saving and operational efficiency benefits and innovation-led growth, broader market access, and new liquidity pools when operating at scale. I want to stop right there. I was on a topic of Tranglo. One of Ripple's partners, they were actually able to open up old corridors that they thought were dead due to the power of the XRP ledger. And I want to continue here that despite the growing momentum in developing DLT use cases, the report also acknowledges that there is still no widespread adoption in securities market, with most DLT-based issuance to date largely experimental exercises due to the challenges identified. I want to stop right there. That's one of the reasons why this Ripple lawsuit is so very important, that we get this done. harmonizing global and regulatory framework and legal frameworks, that is definitely not an easy task to get everybody swinging in the same rhythm. So the Global Financial Markets Association sets out 5 calls to action for industry participants and regulators to overcome existing barriers. Here they are. So harmonize global regulatory and legal frameworks, enable interoperability by building consensus, drive faster adoption, collaborate on advancement of DLT to promote technical solutions, continue the development of DLT-based payment solutions, such as tokenized commercial bank money and deposits. Global Capital Markets Association and other agencies are not the only ones looking into the pros and the cons of DLT technology. These papers are very important. In a new FSI Insights paper, Nicola Brenzoli and Luca Cusmano and Denise G. from the Bank of International Settlements provide a comprehensive overview of the policy measures taken in 19 jurisdictions to address the risks associated with activities that incorporate crypto assets and distributed ledger technologies, programmability capabilities, and financial services. So not only them, but it's great that the Bank of International Settlements is diving into this. She states or continues that we classify policy measures into 3 categories and identify different types of initiatives across jurisdictions, including bans, restrictions, clarifications, bespoke requirements, and initiatives to facilitate innovation. It's a good-sized PDF file, but I'll put this in the description down below in case you want to go through it. But it highlights DLTs have enabled the creation of crypto assets and decentralized finance. It talks about DLTs and how it can be used to represent and transfer different types of real-world assets, including securities that I was just speaking on. Activities and incorporate crypto assets and DLT programmability capabilities promise to open up opportunities for the provision of financial services, but also come with risks and challenges. Crypto assets and DeFi ecosystems show structural flaws and pose risks that, if not addressed, might undermine consumer protection, financial stability, and market integrity. These are important to make sure everything is ready for the new financial system. This is very bullish, though. The fact that they're not only talking about digital assets, but they're also, they're specifically stating crypto assets. So back to the Bank of International Settlements. There has been a lot of talks about Ripple's technology with offline payments. And I'm going to show you the actual document. And it's from the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements Innovation Hub, Project Polaris. And this was posted by Conrad Kraft, who's an executive director of the Digital Euro Association. So a recent survey by the BIS Innovation Hub Nordic Center found that 49% of central banks consider offline payments with retail CBDC to be vital, while another 49% deemed it to be advantageous. However, implementing offline payment capabilities for CBDCs involves complex technology, security, and operational considerations. To guide central banks in this work, the BIS Innovation Hub Nordic Center has published a comprehensive handbook that explores key aspects of how offline payments could work in context of CBDCs. So this definitely has Ripple's technology written all over it. And it's been a topic that's been discussed for quite some time now. And there's going to be people that are going to state it's not technically offline. We are going to go with what they are stating. The handbook provides an overview of the technology components, design criteria for risk management, privacy, inclusion, and resilience, and a set of considerations to inform planning policy, development, technology, and business requirements. This document will be in the description below. And also shows about how offline technology has existed for some time. For example, look at this. Electronic purse systems in the 90s. For example, DigiCash. It states that these pioneering offline digital payment methods reflect the diversity of approaches to offline payments still in use today. There's also EMV offline. That was in the 90s. There's also offline contactless payments in mass transit in the 2000s. And it continues with TAP and QSpark in 2016. Here's modes of offline payments. And for those that argue that it is still online, Look at this, fully offline, where the payer and payee do not need to connect to a ledger system to complete a payment. And any value exchange is immediately transferred to the payee such that it can be spent it at the end of the value transfer. A final settlement occurs offline. Offline payments with CBDCs and also risk. Well, everyone, that's all I have for the video. Thank you for watching another edition of Token Topics. If you did enjoy the content, please consider subscribing so you can stay up to date.